I always recommend them go to the lockpick room
Mhm.
and learn how to lockpick. It gives you something manual and dexterity and tangible that is related to security, and it doesn't feel as complicated if people are intimidated by the super technical talks or coding. I'm just like, go learn how to pick a lock. It's going to help you at some point in your life. I recommend, in a funny way, I do recommend kids learn how to pick locks. I'm just like, that's bad advice.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Simply Offensive. Today I'm joined by my friend V from the Dallas hacker community. V and I have known each other for several years now. We first met through probably Dallas Hackers Association and see each other at different local meetup groups. V's got a really interesting story and does some cool stuff. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Phil. Really, I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on and thanks for all your contributions to the community because I know you're pretty busy and I know across the different groups and even you were doing some stuff for the North Texas ISSA for a while too, weren't you? Or
I help out where I can. I've volunteered at like their golf tournament before. I'd like to volunteer more as I have more time. It just depends on scheduling. I am on the board of B-Sides DFW, so I help with convention planning. I've also tried to assist with a laptop donation program that we need to kick off more. Maybe with another person to help, we'd be able to do more with that. It's a lot of work to run a convention or a con and a nonprofit, and then DC 214 co-MC with Jason, and then professional heckler and cat herder at DHA, trying to keep people into the room so the speakers have their moment, as well as doing like who's hiring, who's looking. Definitely very involved in the community.
so for listeners, if you wouldn't mind sharing your origin story, kind of how you got started and what type of work you do.
So I have a bit of a silly story in a sense that when I went to college, I initially wanted to go for nuclear engineering, and I ended up getting a offer of a full ride to Our Lady of the Lake University. And they didn't have a nuclear engineering or anything near that degree, but I'm like, well, full ride, let's just get a full ride. I'll change my major to something else. And, I wasn't totally dead set. So I went to career fair to decide on my major. I'm looking between accounting and cybersecurity. The cybersecurity folks were incredibly interesting, and the professors there were doctors and professional witnesses for like the FBI, where you go like and sit for what do you call it, court cases, and they're like professional.
Yes. Yeah.
Expert witnesses. So they got to tell me a little bit about that and how their forensics investigation has helped many people save lives and uncover all these crimes. And accounting was kind of cool, and I love math. And the kicker was computer science folks had Snickers on their table. And so I chose that based on the snack. But
Come to the dark side. We have candy.
exactly. So I committed to cybersecurity probably over a Snickers. But I graduated a bit early and had a connection through Tech System, a recruiting firm. Very good firm. I've had great experiences with them. And they got me linked up with Bank of America. And so right out of college, on my resume, I used to have head of security for an anime convention. And that was what interested Bank of America. Head of security for an anime convention. And it was because I ran security, logistics, and operations for an anime convention on our campus. And it was a lot of fun, and got to explain that to some executive who was interviewing me and screening me. And he's like, you know what? That's just interesting. They weren't interested in my education, honestly, at all. They were just interested, like, what do you mean? That was a lot of fun. It was an entry level identity and access management role, and flowed through that for a while. Loved that team at Bank of America. Then I moved into BISO, Business Information Security Operations. I helped redefine some of the processes they have there for how company sends information out to third parties, how we document that and keep chain of custody of information, all of that. Moved into doing Bloomberg security for Bank of America, and then moved through a few other companies after that. I decided it was time to either I was committing to the bank for the rest of my life, or I got to explore and try a few new places at the time because I'd been there for 8 years. Moved into insurance to see a little bit about that. Ran a Tex Ramp program, getting Blue Cross Blue Shield Healthcare Service Corporation certified for Tex Ramp with Lee Mad Hat under Concord Loan Servicing Company for a while, moving more into sole GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, doing more and more internal auditing, documentation, training, education, as well as third-party risk analysis, and then was at GM for a little bit of time and an entrepreneur on my own right now and
Very
bartending.
cool. So what do you do in your business, your consulting business?
I'm open to doing any kind of solo GRC work. So documentation, do kind of like a security assessment for probably smaller companies. Right now, I'm focusing on small businesses, as well as document preparation if they need policies written or reviewed. That's one of my key things that I'd be able to do.
Very cool. So what are some of your thoughts and what's experiences with AI? Because, AI was really heard of, but no one was using it. And then ChatGPT come out and it's all the rage. So what are your thoughts on AI, and are you leveraging it in your day to day?
So AI, like most things in computers, it can be useful if you know how to use it right, but it can also be garbage in, garbage out if you don't know how to use it right. And in my experience, I've been using it predominantly to summarize longer documents. So let's say I'm looking at a PCI report that's 400 pages. I can run that through an AI and say, hey, summarize the key points and highlights of this report and concerns. That's very useful to help with speed. I'd still prefer the old fashioned way personally of reviewing documentation, all rote manual, if you will. But I think it's very useful in summarization of larger legal documents, and especially if you don't know legalese, if you will. I have tried to see how I could use it to write policies. I don't really care for it too much. I can give okay results sometimes, but I feel like I'm still doing too much work correcting or just changing things from what I've gotten feedback from. But maybe that's just because I'm not as experienced in using AI, which is why I said garbage in, garbage out. I need to learn how to utilize the prompts and everything better. I kind of just go old school mostly right now, but I do think there are some uses. I don't think it's replacing GRC analysts, really. I think it can be a tool to assist them, especially in, again, summarization when we're reading thousands of pages of reports, SOC 1, SOC 2, PCI, HIPAA, all those from third parties, and we're dealing with multiple third parties for companies. I think that's a great use for it.
So what are your advice for someone that wants to get into GRC?
My advice for someone who wants to get into GRC is I hope you like Excel and learning how to use that very proficiently, as well as documentation, like kind of taking a step way back is like literally taking a writing course. Because a lot of times when I was writing 80-page training manuals, we'd spend, me and two other people, hours just sentence by sentence breaking apart the semantics of each word. And I think that's the right word to use, but breaking apart like the usage of each word, and it's should versus shall and all that, and how much that can matter. Having a good, strong background in writing is very helpful. You can be technical, that's very helpful, but I don't think it's absolutely required. A lot of people, when I tell them I'm in cybersecurity, they're like, oh, are you coding? Have you been outsourced by AI? I'm like, I have not coded in years for work, and I do not intend to personally. It is not my passion. And I'm glad that so many people are passionate about it, but that's not my thing. I'd rather actually be digging through documents for hours on end. Also, having a good organizational setup is another thing I'd recommend for someone into GRC. There's a company, and I'm not trying to promote their product, but I like the idea behind it. But I believe it's called 6 clicks. If it takes you more than 6 clicks to get to something, it's not well organized, and it's too far buried as far as like folder structure. And organization is very key in GRC, especially when you're preparing audit material.
So, how important are certifications for folks wanting to get into GRC?
They're helpful. I don't think they're necessary, but I think the market is so competitive right now. You could be doing yourself a disservice by having nothing. Having a Security Plus is great. There are a few focused GRC, like C risk, I believe. Certifications would be really great. I have the CISS. I think that was very useful for just like the mile wide, inch deep view into cybersecurity from a management perspective, but it was not critical in getting GRC roles, but it was an aid.
So, what are you seeing as far as like competitiveness for those kind of roles? Because I know a lot of folks want the red team jobs, the offensive security jobs, and there's so many people, so few jobs, and so many people applying for those jobs. How is it when it comes to GRC? Is it really high demand, very difficult kind of area to break into?
I don't know if it's super high demand at the moment. I think the demand is going to go up as CMMC, Cyber Security Maturity Model. I don't know that. I don't know what that stands for. I'm sorry. But CMMC is a certification that many companies are going to be required by law if they are like third and fourth parties, I believe, of the government, that kind of certification. So as that goes into effect more and more over the next few years, I think there's going to be higher demand eventually. But I feel like there is more demand for like the middle of GRC than there is for the entry, and the entry is oversaturated as far as like there's so many people who want to get into cybersecurity. And they see GRC kind of as a good entry point because it's not as technical always, and so it's pretty saturated, I think, market.
So, yeah, one of the things that's interesting too that you brought up that you started out in IAM. So, what are your thoughts on IAM as an entry point for someone breaking into cybersecurity?
I think that's amazing. I think that's a great place to start. Identity and access management is absolutely one of the just foundation of security. Who are you? What do you need? Should you have access to it? That if you're able to get into IAM as entry level, I think that's great. And there's lots of companies that need that adjusted, like older systems, and some companies are moving more towards cloud managed and all that. But then you still have lots of third party applications, and how do you manage that? How do we track that? How do we document when people have the user life cycle? Understanding that as a fundamental in cybersecurity is a great place to start.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how that's evolved because I remember one of my first security roles at the mortgage company I worked at, we had like 4 or 5 people setting up IDs for people when they would come on board. And at that time, they didn't have any of the applications that were set that if HR,
Mhm.
terminates or puts someone takes leave, disable accounts and stuff, it was all manual. But it was kind of interesting because that was kind of a popular entry point back then, but I think it's one that people overlook, and it's evolved so much now when you figure you've got APIs and these service accounts and all these different accounts involved and not just
Mhm.
the user account. It's really evolved, and it's kind of amazing all the things that's involved in it these days.
Yeah, absolutely. There's especially when you work for larger financial institutions, the service accounts are a big deal. They might be running processes in the background and no one's really clear. They've been doing it for a decade plus, and if they turn it off and they don't know what will break, so they just kind of leave it running. So having someone to be like a custodian going through identity and access management for a company and clean it up and try and refine it is very important. I had an internship essentially when I was in my undergraduate studies where I redid the entire university's role-based access. And that was another reason I was able to work with systems and get into Bank of America because it was obviously I am related. I was also the SharePoint manager, which was the portal for all students to access all their information. And so we went from a discretionary access where, someone gets hired, oh, they're under this manager, they have this coworker, they need to do what this coworker does. And there's like, just clone this coworker to this person. Well, maybe that coworker also does accounting. Does this person need accounting rights or like, accounts payable rights? No. That's why role-based access is very great to implement when you can. That way, we're more focused on what you should be doing, not the individual, like hundreds of like little APIs and you should have access to.
Yeah, that just is a really good place for people to start because there's so much you can learn there about access control and all the policies and things around it. So I know you're big in community, so you do a lot of stuff for the community for folks that are, wanting to break in. Do you recommend people getting involved in the community?
Absolutely. I think one of the best things people who are really trying to break in can do is go to the local meetups, be it DC 940 up in Denton, be it North Texas Cybersecurity Group in Louisville, DHA, Dallas Hackers Association, or DC 214, DEF CON Group 214 in Dallas. Those are some key ones. I believe there's also a few local 2600 groups in Fort Worth as well as Dallas. Going to those meetups, networking with people, getting to know people's experiences, and especially for people who are wanting to like break in, if you start talking and presenting at these events, that's something you can put on your resume and have local community members vouch for you as a reference. It gives you a great speaker experience, especially if you're not in the community, you're not in a corporate role where you can practice that. This is a really great place to do that. And there's also North Texas ISSA, which is a professional meetup, which I also highly recommend for networking, and they have mentorship programs.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see how that all works and can help because when I was teaching at Dallas College, I knew Jason from the community, and so Jason was a recent college grad, and I had someone looking for junior pen testers, and I knew what Jason was interested in, his skills. So whenever they were looking for resumes, I was able to get Jason's resume and submit it as well. And Jason was able to get his first pen testing role that way.
That's really cool. And I got my role at Concord through the community because I knew Mad Hat and he was looking for GRC folks. And I was able to fulfill that role for a while and it was great.
Yeah,
And
it's actually,
I know,
I'm
go
sorry, go
on.
ahead. Finish. Yeah, I got my second pen testing job through Wirefall because Wirefall, they were hiring where Wirefall was working and he recommended me. So I got my second pen testing job through Wirefall.
There's also one of our friends, she goes by Pibble. She has been able to reference so many people into her company that they stopped letting her reference people into the company for the bonuses. And, a lot of people don't always realize you can, when you're at, a big corporate institution, if you refer another employee and they get hired, you can get bonus money. And I'm like, I think that helped pay for part of her wedding. And I'm like, that's awesome. And it also helped out the community. It helped out her, helped out them, just all around. Highly recommend joining any of the community meetups. Some of them are more social, some are professional, a little bit of everything for everyone, I think, depending on how social and how big of a group you want to go to.
So you mentioned being on the board for B-Sides. So what are your thoughts on volunteering at conferences?
I think that's a great option. I was unable to make Dell HackCon. I'll definitely make the next one. Or that's Cyber HackCon. Cyber HackCon?
Yeah,
Sorry.
CyberHackCon. Yes. Yep.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I was supposed to be there for the community table and just wasn't feeling great that day. But for anyone who's able to volunteer, say you're in college and you're trying to break into cybersecurity, volunteer at a conference, you get a free ticket, you work only like a few hours, you get to go see talks, and you're saving probably hundreds of dollars on a ticket. Getting great exposure and great connections. Always recommend volunteering. I volunteered at DEF CON 2 years ago. Had a great experience. I was in the social engineering community and it was a ton of fun. I only had to work, I think, 1 8-hour or 2 8-hour shifts through the whole convention, which maybe it was only 4. It wasn't intrusive to my time at the convention is my point. And, DEF CON tickets are not cheap. So
No.
that was a huge savings and great connections, learning about people in the social engineering community, getting to see the whole presentations as I was just doing door ushering. It wasn't anything complicated. So highly recommend volunteering.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how quickly people can get to know people in the community, because I've witnessed, several college students over the years either volunteering for B-Sides DFW or the North Texas
Mm-hmm.
ISSA conference, and they get in there, not really knowing anyone, but after they work this whole conference, they get to meet so many people. People are coming to them for help, and so they're able to really connect. It's almost like you're networking in dog years, because this one conference, you're able to meet so many people.
Yes, absolutely. And it gives people who are newer or even older, it doesn't matter, leadership experience if you volunteer for some of the leadership roles. We have people who were first time volunteers and they were running the volunteer organization for B-Sides DFW as an example. And they had never done that before, but them learning those skills and coordinating all the volunteers and the shifts and all that is great leadership experience and really helps them out, I think, long term.
Yeah, and as you kind of mentioned, age doesn't matter either. It's kind of cool. I was at
Hmm.
B-Sides Tampa a couple weeks ago, and there was a couple that were retired, and this is what they volunteer for B-Sides, because they didn't work in cybersecurity, but they volunteered to give them something to do. When you're in retirement, sometimes people get tired of vacationing and leisure activities, and some folks will volunteer.
One of the first things I always recommend for anyone who's cyber curious, if I recommend them to come out to Dallas Hackers Association, although it can be a bit busy and overstimulating, sometimes it's over 100 to 120 or 40 people, I always recommend them go to the lockpick room and learn how to lockpick. It gives you something manual and dexterity and tangible that is related to security, and it doesn't feel as complicated if people are intimidated by the super technical talks or coding. I'm just like, go learn how to pick a lock. It's going to help you at some point in your life. I recommend, so in a funny way, I do recommend kids learn how to pick locks. I'm just like, that's bad advice, but because you don't want your kids to be breaking into things. At the same time, will help them, I think, long term with a certain skill over their life.
Yeah, that's just like Funky Cold from DC 940. His son picked up picking when I don't know if he maybe still in, I think he's still in elementary school, and really enjoyed it. So it's kind of a interesting thing for kids to do and get them curious to other types of
Hmm.
technology. But one of the things I think cool about lock picking, I don't know about you, but it just seems kind of relaxing, because you just focused on this lock and it just takes your mind
Hmm.
off of stuff.
Hyper fixation, and it's really great if you're overstimulated by all the lights and the people. You can just go into your little corner and focus on the lock. It's kind of cool. And I'm shout out again to I'm going to shout out to Mobius. I once locked my keys inside my car. As I didn't lock my phone in my car because I was able to call her, and I'm like, I can't afford a locksmith right now. And I know you live like 2 miles away. Can you come over and help me pick my car? And I was able to use her tools to, I think they call it Slim Jim or something, the
Yep.
car.
Yep.
Yep. And I was able to break into my own car and get my keys out. It helped save me a couple $100. Again, being connected in the community helps you in many ways.
Yes. One of the things too is just the support from the community. And I really feel like this is probably helpful for those that are, currently out of work. If they're laid off, they've got, community they can kind of lean on, got kind of a support system of people that understand what they do and what they're going through.
Yeah, there's I think a concept called third place. So you have home, you have work, and a lot of people have lacked third places in more modern years, if you will, in the few decades. The third place for a lot of folks used to be, say, church, and for some people it still is, and that's great. It's a third place. It's I don't want to. It's not a hobby necessarily, but it's a place that's not home, not work, and you're building morale for yourself and your community somehow. And I feel like the Dallas hacker community has been my third place for quite a few years, which is great because otherwise sometimes people make their third place like a bar, and that could be fine. But at the same time, having a third place be a community that's geared towards educating and supporting each other is really amazing. And I think that's.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things too is, I've been a member of a church, and I've been a member of the fitness community because I used to compete in
Hmm.
powerlifting. And when my
Hmm.
mom was sick and dying from cancer, when I got back, because my daughter and I went during her spring break in college to go visit my mom. While we're there, she got admitted to the hospital. She'd had cancer and it metastasized to her brain. So they gave her 30 days. So my daughter and I had to come back to Dallas and get more clothes and stuff and get some of her books and things, since she was fortunately able to do her classes remotely and I was able to work remotely. But one of the things in the most comforting group out of everything was Dallas Hackers, because I came back and I went to, yeah, I had some pretty good friends at Toastmasters, church, but then it's just the hacker community really resonates with me more. And those are the folks that I had to come back and see before I was gone for a while.
Absolutely. I've been really good friends with quite a few people. You're very familiar with Juno. I've been friends with Juno from way back in the day. I don't want to dox her workplace, but known her for a long time through potential things, and had lots of folks who were like the hacker community involved in like going to my wedding in 2016. It's grown a lot and I've always been supportive. I've had moves before, and like 2 years ago, where I was so stressed. I haven't packed anything. I haven't packed anything for this move right now yet. And I called up Pibble and they showed up and helped me pack stuff and organize stuff and get my head not on fire. And it's just such a great thing. And we even have Libra Technica, our friend Quantum Cheap, who runs that. We used to swap our garden stuff. I had a garden extensively where we'd grow all the vegetables, just everything. And so I'd give him a giant basket of the stuff if I could, and then he'd give me freeze dried food. So it's really cool getting to know everyone, and then also all their side hobbies, and just it's a wonderful place to be, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
Come out to Dallas Hackers Association, come out to DC 214, DC 940, 2600, meet people, grow your network. If you're trying to get into cybersecurity, I think that is a huge group of folks right now. And if you are also looking for work, don't lose hope, because the market will turn at some point. Keep on trying to improve your education by, just watching the talks and seeing what people present at conventions like yours. It can be inspiring and help motivate you to create a positive cycle forward. So try and network as much as possible. I think networking is the way to go if you're trying to break in, is really what I want to just shout out.
Yeah, great advice. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate it, and I'm sure someone will get some good out of this. It's always good to get to speak with other folks. A lot of times I have offensive security people, but I think it's important to learn some of the other roles. And one of the things I really encourage people to do in general, educators or whoever, share other types of roles with folks, because even if someone, maybe they want to do the red team thing or pen testing, but maybe if they found GRC or IAM, they may like it better or something. So you never
Right.
can tell.
And try a little bit of everything. Go on YouTube. YouTube is one of the best resources. Spotify podcasts, your podcast. Security is a mile wide. There's so many different things. Again, I don't code. And every time I say I work in cybersecurity to someone who doesn't work in cybersecurity, they're like, oh, you're a coder. I'm like, nope. I do documentation a lot and a lot of other stuff and auditing and people management. So I think that exploring security is incredibly helpful.
Very good. So thanks again. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you in the next episode. And make sure to subscribe and share with your friends. And until next time, take care.